In one of the darkest chapters of Israel's modern history, multiple cities across the nation are engulfed in flames following an unprecedented wave of missile strikes that have left more than 185,000 people homeless and forced tens of thousands to flee the country. As fire and fear grip the heart of the nation, the humanitarian crisis unfolding is as severe as any Israel has ever faced. Entire neighborhoods lie in ruins. Once thriving residential blocks are now reduced to rubble. From Tel Aviv to Haifa, Ashdod to Be'er Sheva, the scale of devastation is staggering, with families torn apart, infrastructure paralyzed, and a wave of displacement sweeping across the country. The attack, a country under siege. In the early hours of the morning, sirens wailed across Israel's densely populated urban centers as missile after missile descended from the skies. Iranian and proxy forces launched what military analysts are calling a coordinated full-spectrum assault, combining long-range ballistic missiles, drones, and suspected hypersonic weapons in a synchronized attack that overwhelmed Israel's missile defense systems. While Israel's Iron Dome and David's Sling systems intercepted dozens of incoming threats, they were ultimately unable to cope with the sheer volume and complexity of the onslaught. Several residential zones, especially in South Tel Aviv, eastern Haifa, and the port area of Ashdod, were directly hit. Massive explosions rocked the buildings, setting off fires that quickly consumed surrounding structures. Israeli emergency services, already stretched to their limit, struggled to respond. Fire crews worked through the night to contain blazes, while medics treated victims in makeshift triage centers after hospitals reached capacity. Some emergency workers were caught in secondary blasts, further hampering rescue efforts. The human toll: 185,000 plus homeless. Lives shattered. The damage to civilian infrastructure is immense. Initial estimates suggest more than 45,000 homes have been destroyed or severely damaged, displacing over 185,000 people. Shelters in Jerusalem, Eilat, and the Galilee region are overwhelmed as waves of newly homeless citizens arrive with nothing but the clothes on their backs. Temporary refugee camps have sprung up in parks, parking lots, and public squares. Schools and community centers have been converted into emergency shelters, but food, clean water, and medical supplies are rapidly dwindling. Israeli officials have called on international partners for emergency humanitarian aid as the crisis grows more desperate by the hour. Children, many traumatized and separated from their families, cry through the night in makeshift tents. Volunteers and trauma counselors are working around the clock to provide basic care, but the psychological toll is incalculable. Many survivors speak of narrow escapes, loved ones lost in collapsed buildings, and lives forever changed. Mass exodus: Israelis fleeing the country. As fear grips the population, more than 250,000 Israeli citizens have attempted to flee in the last 48 hours. With Ben Gurion International Airport operating under emergency protocols and several major airlines suspending service, thousands are stranded, desperate to find any way out. Land border crossings with Jordan and Egypt have seen unprecedented crowds. Families are abandoning homes, businesses, and possessions as they seek safety abroad. European and North American embassies have reported surges in visa requests from Israeli nationals, prompting diplomatic efforts to accommodate refugees. For many Israelis, this mass departure is not just about physical safety. It's about a profound sense of uncertainty. "We've lived through wars before, but this is different," said Yael Cohen, a Tel Aviv resident who fled to Cyprus with her 2 children. "This feels like everything is collapsing." Cities in flames: Tel Aviv, Haifa, Ashdod. Tel Aviv, the vibrant cultural and economic heart of Israel has been brought to a near standstill. Fires rage through southern districts, and large sections of the city are without power. The Azrieli Center and nearby commercial complexes suffered blast damage, and several apartment towers collapsed in the Hatikva neighborhood. In Haifa, a massive missile strike on the port district ignited chemical storage facilities, triggering toxic clouds and necessitating evacuations from surrounding neighborhoods. Hospitals are operating on backup generators, and emergency personnel wear protective gear to manage the fallout. Ashdod, a major port and manufacturing hub, endured direct hits to both civilian and military infrastructure. Fires spread through residential areas and critical fuel storage sites. The coastal city now resembles a war zone, with blackened buildings and streets choked with ash and debris. Government response. National emergency declared. The Israeli government has formally declared a state of national emergency. Prime Minister addressed the nation in a grim broadcast. Our homeland is under attack. Our homes are burning. But we will not yield. Israel will recover, rebuild, and retaliate. The government has activated emergency war powers, deploying the military for civil support operations. Thousands of IDF troops have been reassigned from frontline duty to assist with civilian evacuations, emergency logistics, and fire suppression. The Ministry of Health has requested international medical teams, field hospitals, and trauma specialists. The Ministry of Welfare has issued a dire alert that the country is facing its worst humanitarian crisis in decades. International reaction. Outpouring of support and concern. The world has responded with shock and solidarity. The United States, United Kingdom, France, Germany, and other allies have offered military and humanitarian assistance. President, insert name, pledged full support for Israel's defense and recovery, and deployed a U.S. carrier strike group to the eastern Mediterranean. The United Nations has called for an immediate ceasefire, while launching a relief effort to support displaced civilians. Aid organizations such as the Red Cross, Médecins Sans Frontières, and UNHCR have begun mobilizing resources and personnel. Meanwhile, nations across the Middle East are divided. While Egypt and Jordan have urged de-escalation, Iranian allies like Hezbollah and the Houthis have praised the attack and warned of further action. The situation remains dangerously unstable. Economic collapse. Infrastructure and markets in freefall. The economic fallout is severe. The Tel Aviv Stock Exchange has suspended trading after a massive sell-off. Israeli tech giants have shuttered operations or shifted to overseas offices. Banks are overwhelmed by withdrawal requests, and fuel shortages have begun to affect transportation and emergency services. Electric grids in several regions are down or operating at reduced capacity. Telecommunications companies have reported cyber intrusions and physical damage to data centers. Major infrastructure projects have halted, and ports remain closed indefinitely. International investors are pulling out in droves, and economists now project the Israeli economy could shrink by 10 to 15% in the coming quarter, unless stabilization efforts succeed. The emotional landscape. A nation in mourning Israel is a country accustomed to crisis, but few recall a time of suffering this deep and widespread. Flags fly at half-staff. Mourning ceremonies are held in public squares. Communities band together to mourn the dead and care for the displaced. But the atmosphere is heavy with grief, anger, and fear. Social media is filled with images of families reunited in shelters, citizens digging through rubble for survivors, and heartbreakingly long lists of the missing. Music, celebration, and daily routines have given way to sirens, candlelight vigils, and desperate prayers. What comes next? Uncertain paths forward. The path ahead for Israel is steep and uncertain. The immediate focus is on rescue, relief, and retaliation. Israeli military forces are striking back against launch sites in Syria, Lebanon, and Iraq. Strategic decision-making now centers around whether to launch direct strikes inside Iran, a move that could ignite a regional war. Diplomatic channels remain open but strained. Global powers are attempting to broker a ceasefire, but the atmosphere remains charged with vengeance and defiance. For Israeli civilians, however, the pressing questions are more personal. Where will we sleep tonight? How will we recover? Is it safe to go home? Or is home gone forever? Conclusion: a turning point in history. As residential areas continue to burn and hundreds of thousands remain displaced, Israel faces one of the greatest national challenges in its history. The scale of the destruction, the human cost, and the psychological trauma have redefined the boundaries of modern warfare and tested the resilience of an entire population. While military analysts debate strategy and world leaders call for calm, ordinary people, families, children, survivors, are living through a catastrophe of unimaginable proportions. Their strength, unity, and spirit will determine what Israel looks like in the weeks and years to come. For now, the fires still burn, the people still flee, and the world watches with both dread and hope for what comes next.